Hi and welcome. I am here with Patrick Eilers, and he's a counselor to give us some advice and to talk to us today on a very sensitive subject. And I want to put a disclaimer here. If you're with kids in the car, if you're listening to we're going to be talking about some issues that are adult issues. So I just want to give that to you as a heads up. What we're talking about today is some of the aftermath from sexual addiction. And Patrick has a background in sexual addiction and helping people overcome these very issues. And we've asked him to join us today to help us understand how sometimes things that we don't plan on in our lives happen to us. It might actually help us either to understand others that are going through a similar situation, or maybe it will give us some insights into trauma that maybe we've never actually looked at. So please help me welcome Patrick Eilers.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate being here.
So if somebody was suffering from either themselves or a family member that has sex addiction and they are not able to, I don't know, maybe get the help that they need and they are in the cocoon, what are some of the first steps that they would take in order to not just have an honest conversation with themselves, but maybe actually
Mhm.
go to get some help?
Yeah, I think the first thing would be if you're surrounding yourself in isolation, who are the first people in your life that you know that you may feel safe with, or that you could work toward building that bridge, so to speak, with someone. Therapists are in that position from an objective perspective, but a lot of people there's apprehension to do therapy, especially if I haven't really wanted to open up and tell all these things to someone. So I think what kind of small steps can you start to make relationally with folks in the sense that, okay, yes, I can talk to my friend here, maybe not about what I'm dealing with in the depths of it, but being able to kind of start to open up a little more about how my day was, or if you're married or in a relationship, can I start talking with my significant other about a little more specifics. The way I think about it is from an intimacy perspective, we got to bring our fences down. And I go back to my analogy I use with the guys I work with is home improvement. There's the Tim Allen's neighbor had the really high fence up. I forget his name's Wilson, I think is his neighbor. Had the you could only see his eyes. And so the comedic
Oh,
humor was that he was this guy who was this mysterious guy behind the fence. But there's a lot of people who are emotionally living that. They live that out every day, right? They have this fence up and they're only willing to show that much of themselves. And so when people enter relationships, even if it's intimate relationships, that fence doesn't come down. And so a spouse or a partner or even a friend or anybody might come and knock on the fence and say, hey, I want to know what's going on. I care about you. I want to see who you really are. I want to care about you from where I'm at. And the person's like, no, it's good. I'm good with this fence being up. And that it makes a hindrance to connect with people in an intimate way because I have this barrier between me and whoever it is I'm interacting with.
so what happens if somebody is the person behind the fence and they're really just terrified that if other people get to know them, they're not going to love them or not going to accept them? Or what happens if you put yourself in a vulnerable situation and then you find out that maybe you're not accepted like you hoped you would be?
That is a risk. There's always the risk as human beings. There's always a risk that we will potentially be hurt. That's not an easy thing for anyone, even for people who may not be struggling with these types of things. I think ultimately it comes down to two pieces. The one part I'd say, do I believe? Is my belief now that all human beings are going to hurt me, or all people are going to harm me, or was it this particular person that had hurt me? Do I look at the person or the situation or circumstance more objectively in that way that this is someone specifically who's harmed me? It's not all humanity in that way. And that can be challenging because our emotions may tell us, or there may be things that we experience that say everybody is dangerous. And that's part of our experience. Emotions are not facts, but they sometimes feel like they are. And so we have to be in that position where, okay, can I objectively, that this may not be necessarily isolated, but it is one person. It's not everybody I'm going to interact with. I think the other part when you're talking about bringing the fence down is that do I believe that I'm worthy? One of the things we talk a lot about in our recovery program we have here at North Point is the belief that I'm worthy. A lot of people don't think they're worthy. If you don't feel you're worthy to be loved, then there's a really high chance, really high probability that you're probably going to keep the fence up. There, even if I wanted to put it down, if I believe I'm not worthy, then I'm going to leave it up. And so I think those are two of the big pieces when we're talking about bringing the fence down or decluttering my cocoon, so to speak, and moving toward connecting with people.
I love this conversation. And I do want to say hi and thank you to everybody. And I appreciate you joining us here today. Patrick, will you tell our listeners where they can go to find you and your practice?
Yep, absolutely. The practice website is counseling.com. You'll see my bio. You'll see the bios of my other colleagues here who specialize in sex addiction, partner trauma. That's what we do here. If you're interested in checking us out, that's where you get from the website there. My personal Instagram is rated_PGE. I don't post a lot of mental health stuff there. So I do have some photography as a side hobby that I'd like to do. So there's some things there you can see. I do like to share some stuff I do find from other mental health things. You can reach me. My email is Patrick Eilers, my name, .we, like we, at gmail.com. So that's my personal email. I also have a LinkedIn account. It's just my name and has my credentials and some of the other things I've been part of on there. So those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me if you want to get in touch with me directly.
And I will put links in the show notes too, though, so that you guys can get in touch with Patrick. But I really appreciate Patrick being willing to have some of those hard conversations with us as we work through our journey of humanity. And we have some of those tough conversations that are those honest conversations that are going to keep us moving from point A to point B in our journey. So thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks, Angela. Really appreciate it.